And we are recording.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone is being as well and staying safe. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of USC Annenberg. My name is Leticia Lozoya, and I'm the Director of Alumni Relations at the Annenberg School. And I'm so excited to have this program on for you today. But I wanted to just quickly announce that we also have another event like this on Thursday at noon with Adrienne Bankert. She's part of Good Morning America and will be teaching, leading a discussion on keeping your head in the game and creating and connecting authentically, even in crisis mode. So if you're interested, check it out on our Annenberg events page and sign up. That event will be on Thursday at noon Pacific time. So without any further waiting, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker for tonight, Caroline Leach. She is a storyteller, and she helps organizations and people tell their stories and create the future. She used to work over at AT&T as VP of Corporate Communications and Marketing, and recently founded the Corel Company to provide digital branding for people to grow their careers and companies through social media. She's a proud Annenberg alum, and she also represents the school on the USC Alumni Association Board of Governors. So Caroline, I'll let you take it away from here.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining at the end of a long day. Does anyone know what day it is? I think it's Tuesday. I'm not sure. I just had one of those working from home moments where out of the corner of my eye, I realized the neighbor's dog is walking through our backyard. So I just texted my daughter to let the neighbor know in case they're worried about her. I want today to be really interactive and conversational, so I'm going to be kind of monitoring the chat box. If you have questions, please go ahead and ask those questions. If I forget to look at it, Leticia will remind me and she'll interject. I'd really like this to be interactive. I really want to be sure that we're answering your questions and what is on your minds. So with that, let's get started.
Are you done?
Okay. So our world is rapidly changing, and I think that's kind of an understatement. I think the COVID-19, the coronavirus, is unlike anything any of us have seen in our lifetimes. And I was kind of going through all of the business cycles that I've experienced throughout my career and my life to date. Certainly there were the LA riots in '92. There was a big aerospace downturn in the '90s. There was 9/11. There was a dot-com bust. There was the day the company I worked for said that we were going to let go 25% of our workforce. There was the real estate bust. There was the 2008 recession. And each time, things kind of played out in a cycle. And it's helpful and comforting having that perspective of things that always go in a cycle. However, we're really facing something that the likes of which we've never seen before. I don't know about all of you. I've been monitoring the news, and my first kind of inkling was Bill Gates is a voice that I trust, and when he said, we'll probably be home for 6 to 10 weeks, I thought, yeah, Bill probably knows what he's talking about. He's studied pandemics and how we can respond and prepare. And it's really interesting, just today, the news seems to be focused on not 6 to 10 weeks, but maybe our lives will be very different through 2022. So it's a constantly changing, rapidly evolving scenario. And that's a challenge. People are losing jobs, people are working from home, people are homeschooling their kids. There's just a lot that we're all dealing with. And the most important thing right now that I really want to emphasize is there's nothing more important than your health, than you staying healthy, your family staying healthy, because when you're healthy, you can tackle practically any challenge that there is if you're determined enough to do it. So we're all in this together. We're kind of feeling our way forward, and we're all here to help each other and figure out how we're going to get through this and be stronger on the other side of it. So with all those challenges, in adversity, there's also opportunity. And a couple of those opportunities are thinking about what are the areas that or what are the services, what are the products that people really need right now for what is our stay-at-home lifestyle now and the way our world is likely to change. So just in the reading that I've done, the things that are really, really of interest in terms of industries are health and wellness, sustainability, how people can get their groceries on a contact-free basis. Meal prep is big, online learning, remote work apps, and all kinds of entertainment, whether it's streaming or gaming. People really want to be entertained and they want to take their minds off what is going on. So, and just today I was reading that big tech is hiring. So this is a time to kind of look at what are the products and services people really need? Where could you pivot your career in terms of industry or even the type of work that you're doing to take advantage of what those opportunities are? And just as a reminder, it's kind of interesting to look back in the 2008, the Great Recession, as it was called, and see, you know, what companies were formed during that time that we probably couldn't live without today. Uber was formed, Pinterest, Instagram, Slack, WhatsApp. So a lot of innovation has come out of adversity, and this could be one of those times as well, even though it can seem really bleak. What things are going to be needed now and in the future, and how could you pivot your career in that direction? So let's get into, we talked a lot about the pandemic, all the things we can't control. We can't control that we're being asked to stay at home. There's so little that we really can control, but one thing we can control is how we communicate about ourselves and how we think about what we want to be known for and how we think about our personal brand, which essentially is our reputation. And it feels really interesting to talk about a personal brand really with a group of communicators and journalists and people who do this for a living, because you are so well equipped with these branding and communication skills. And so every one of us, each one of us has a personal brand, whether we actively decide to create and communicate one or not, because we develop a reputation going through the motions of our lives and how we show up and how we interact with people. So if you haven't taken the time to think about what is your personal brand, what is it you want to be known for, this is a really good time to be doing that. And if you're not really sure, if you have a lot of interests, if you're not really sure how people view you, one thing that you can do that's kind of fun, and this is not my idea, this comes from Dory Clark, who is a prolific writer and blogger and marketing consultant and speaker. But the exercise is reach out to 5 to 10 people who know you well, probably your work colleagues. You can throw in, you know, a friend or two or a family member, and ask them, when they think of you, what 3 words come to mind? And then as those words come in, look for patterns in the words. Look for the words that recur often. That can give you a clue as to how you're already perceived. And if you like what that is, then you can build your brand around that and how you communicate. If there's a gap between how people perceive you and how you view yourself, you can do one of 2 things. You can consciously decide to close that gap in the way that you're communicating, or there might be something interesting about how others see you that you're not seeing in yourself that could be a towering strength that you might want to pursue and really look into. Somebody put a really great comment in here: our brand is what others have to say about us. Indeed. Jeff Bezos, I think, says it well too, is that your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So the question is, what do you want people to be saying about you, and how can you consciously craft that narrative about yourself? Okay, so I'm going to go through 4 strategies for how you can take your personal brand through social media, how you can pivot your brand. And again, I really encourage questions as we go so that we can kind of have an interactive dialogue here. And there's an interesting question here. I'm in my 50s and changing careers. How do I change from one brand to a new one? Great question, really, at any age, because no matter what you do, you can get identified with certain companies or certain job roles that you've had. When you choose a new direction or areas of focus, areas of interest, and you consistently communicate about those areas in all ways, whether it's social media or hopefully we'll all be interacting on a one-on-one basis and face-to-face, if you consistently are talking about new topics and new subjects and doing things in those areas, then over a period of time, people's views of you will change and you can rebrand yourself. And I realize and understand as rapidly as the world's changing right now, a lot of us on this webinar probably want to change how we're perceived relatively quickly, and that can be done too. So let's start with personal brand on social media, and it all starts with picking where you want to play. And that doesn't mean you need to be everywhere. You don't need to be on every social media network, kind of spreading yourself thin and really not making an impact. You definitely need to be on LinkedIn. Everyone needs to be on LinkedIn. I always laugh at the stats that say 94% of recruiters source candidates on LinkedIn. And I think, really, what are the other 6% doing? Where are they finding people? So you definitely want to be on LinkedIn. 670 million people are on LinkedIn. You can connect with practically anyone in the professional world. And then I would say choose one or two other platforms if you find you have sort of that extra time in your schedule. It could be Instagram if you like to sort of document and share about your career in a visual medium. It could be Twitter if you kind of like that quick, real time, sort of the humorous aspect of it. If you do something that's very visual and you create a lot of videos, YouTube might be the place for you. And one thing I'd also strongly recommend, especially now, if you find you have a little extra time on your hands, if you don't already have a website with your name as your domain, like janesmith.com or carolineleach.com or leticialazoya.com, now is an excellent time to secure that domain and to start building a website that you can have as your home base, your foundation, your real estate that you own and control. You can develop your whole career portfolio there, and then you can syndicate and share that content across all of your social media networks that you choose. And the key thing there is you control it. You're not subject to the whims of a social media platform changing its algorithms, and all of a sudden you aren't reaching the extent of your audience that you want to be reaching. I want to say a couple things about LinkedIn. A couple things about your profile. Make sure your profile is completely filled out. Keep filling in all the boxes until LinkedIn gives you that little all-star notation up at the top. And the three areas you want to focus most of your attention on are your headline, your summary, and your job descriptions. And when you're writing those, you want to think about the kind of work that you want to do and the kinds of things that you want to be found for. And then you want to think about, if someone were a recruiter or a hiring manager, what words would they search on to find someone like you? And then you want to make sure that you have woven those words through your headline, through your summary, and through your job descriptions. Currently, your headline on LinkedIn just defaults to your current title. And if you don't change the default and personalize it, you're actually really wasting some important space. So be sure to personalize your LinkedIn headline. You get more characters if you do it on your mobile device rather than on your laptop. So update it on your phone, not on your laptop. And you can change it every day or multiple times every day. You can kind of play with it and see what works for you. And then on summaries, my advice is, read a bunch of summaries of people you admire and kind of see what resonates with you, what speaks to you. Use that space to tell your story. Use first person, let your personality really come through. Don't use buzzwords and jargon, but really tell the interesting story of you and what you do. And then in your job descriptions, just ensure that you have at least a couple of bullets for each job that are very results oriented and include numbers where you can of things you increased or enhanced. I had a recruiter once tell me, because I was really curious, I said, you know, when you are evaluating a candidate, how do you think about, what do you look for on their LinkedIn profile? And the main thing was looking for parity between, did the LinkedIn profile, the sort of that public facing profile, pretty much match the resume that the candidate had submitted for the job? I'm going to go to a couple questions now. Someone said on LinkedIn, how much do endorsements matter? And how do you go about asking someone to endorse you? I don't think endorsements are all that important anymore. Those are the ones where there's a list of skills and, you know, people say, you know, do you want to endorse Leticia for leadership, or, you know, all those things. I think it can be helpful to have some. The couple things, one thing about endorsements, you can change the order of your endorsements. So your top 3 endorsements are going to show up on your profile. So what I would advise on endorsements, if you have people who've endorsed you, look at that list and decide what are the top 3 endorsements that tell the story that you want to tell about what your expertise and your background is and what you bring to the world, and move them around. If there's endorsements, you probably all had this, where you get a random endorsement from someone you don't know for a skill you don't even have. You can delete those. You can just delete, you know, if you don't want to be known for newsletter publishing, just, you know, exit out and take it off there. So endorsements are separate from recommendations. I think recommendations are really important, both to give recommendations for others and to have people give recommendations for you. I can't speak for all recruiters. I don't know if people read them or not, but they are a very strong form of social proof, where someone else has come out and said wonderful things about you, and hopefully very tailored things specific to what your strengths are. My recommendation is, at least twice a year, ask someone for a recommendation on LinkedIn. You kind of want to space them out, maybe once every 6 months. You don't want to have, you know, 5 recommendations that are all posted around the same time. It can look a little bit strange. And what you can do is you can actually, when you ask someone for a recommendation, you can sort of pre-write it, or you can give them bullet points. And this does 2 things. One, it makes it really easy for them to respond. They just have to decide, do they agree with it? Do they want to edit a little bit? It makes their job a lot easier. And the other thing is, you have then reinforced the points and the areas that you want to be known for. So you actually get a recommendation that helps to round out your whole profile. What about, okay, here's another question. What about using quotes from recommendations on your site? I think that's a wonderful idea. Anytime you have another party, another person endorsing you, my recommendation there would be just ask their permission that it's okay that you share that on your site. And one other question: what kind of info should we put in our about section besides the obvious information about ourselves? Should it be a summary of what we already have on our LinkedIn? It can be a lot of things, and that's why I recommend that you know, take a half hour and just read summaries and see which summaries make you very interested in the person, which summaries bore you, you know, how you react to different summaries. It's sort of like that, you know, summary part in your resume. I wouldn't say to write it the same way, but it's essentially, if somebody read nothing else about you, would they understand the essence of you? Would they understand your background? Would they understand what makes you tick? Would they understand what you can bring to their organization? So I wish I could be more specific, but I think that's one that is very much, you know, open to interpretation. But the one thing that would be true for all summaries is, again, think about keywords that someone might search on to find someone like you, and make sure those keywords are naturally sprinkled through your words. And if I didn't say it before, summaries should be in first person. You should write I and me. Don't write it like a bio in the third person, you know, Caroline Leach. No, don't do that. It's I and me. Okay, let's move on to the second item, which is, Once you've got your profiles kind of crisped up and reflective of your personal brand, you want to think about sharing content. And this is how you can shift how you're perceived. This is how you can shift your personal brand. And that is choosing 2 or 3 content buckets for what you want to be known for and consistently sharing about those. So in my case, it's social media, it's personal branding, there's a little bit of leadership in there. Sometimes there's a wild card, but those are the general topics that I'm sharing about and have become known for. There's an example here from Dean Bay, which I think is just a perfect example of a great post on LinkedIn. Because she talks about a major accomplishment at Annenberg. She talks about transitioning the spring classes, how many classes there were, how many faculty. She applauds and appreciates the faculty and staff and all that they did to make this transition happen. She tagged someone who was very instrumental in the whole process. She has a bunch of relevant hashtags. And the most valuable piece about the whole post is she includes content that practically anyone on LinkedIn would benefit from. And that is Zoom best practices, how to keep Zoom bombers out of your meetings. It's not the most visually stunning post, but there's so much value in the content. She's very focused on the audience and how she can be of help to people. Without ever saying, you know, look at me, I'm a great leader, look at all this stuff that I did. And that's one of the concerns that I hear from a lot of my clients is they don't want to come across as overly self-promotional, as all about them. And this is another reason why I think this particular post is really so brilliant and well done. Okay, I'm going to go to a couple questions. Will a recruiter or potential employer find it jarring or off-putting if you make a career pivot and your LinkedIn information suddenly shifts? Does this cause confusion, makes you look like you don't know who you are, what type of job you want? Possibly it could. I think we're in such unusual circumstances now that I don't think most people would look negatively on that. A lot of pivots might not be by choice. They might be because people needed to quickly make a change and move into an area that had more employment opportunities. One thing you can do too is you can, just like a product brand launch, you can have everything ready and just sort of flip the switch on a particular day. I did this when I left the corporate world about 1.5 years ago. I had, you know, my farewell message and some different things. And then I had a deadline day. I had my new profile photo went up, my new background picture, my new headline, you know, everything was just like done. So you can do it that way really quickly, or you can do it over time. And I think we're in such unusual circumstances that, you know, change away as you go. Okay. How do you effectively blend parts of your personality with your professional achievements? How do you walk the fine line between making yourself stand out without seeming too casual? Framing your achievements in a creative, exciting way without seeming boring or generic? Great question. I think a lot of that is just thinking about what are you doing in your work life that could be interesting or valuable to people in your network that you might want to share about. I also talk about a concept called a social media trifecta when you're posting, and that is to think about your post in thirds, where a third of the post is you're talking about something you accomplished. A third of the post is talking about the people on the team or your colleagues who were involved in a certain accomplishment. And then a third is being a good brand ambassador for your organization and talk about how your organization's culture enabled a particular accomplishment or something cool about the organization, and kind of wrap that into one nice, neat whole. Okay. And third, the really important thing that you can be doing in social media is building a really diverse and vibrant network. And my advice here is always be connecting wherever you go. Anyone you meet in real life, you meet virtually, always, always, always send them a personalized LinkedIn connection. And, you know, follow them on Instagram or Twitter or your other social media channels of choice that you use professionally. I had, before this webinar, 1 or 2 people reached out to me. They sent me LinkedIn invites and we connected before we even got on today's call. And that was kind of fun to understand who was going to be in the audience and who was going to be part of today's discussion. There's an interesting concept. This is by a Harvard professor, Robert Putnam, and he advises to seek 2 types of connections. One is a bonding connection and another is a bridging connection. And so a bonding connection is people who are like you. So for example, everyone on this webinar who is a USC Annenberg alum, we would be considered bonding connections because we have that similarity in common about going to Annenberg and being part of that community. And those connections are very strong and very vital, and they're also the ones that we gravitate towards. So the other type of connection that's really important is to be thinking about bridging connections. And so these are people who are different from you. They may be in a different industry. They may live in a different part of the country or the world. They may be from a different generation. They may be from a different background. And to the extent that you can consciously add bridging connections to your network, you are adding diversity, you're adding fresh ideas. You're also taking advantage of that, the strength of weak ties theory to where people you don't know as well or don't have as much in common with may ultimately be the link to a lead on a new job or a new opportunity. So be seeking all types of connections in your network. I'm just going to check and see if we have any questions here. Okay. Okay. And lastly, I want to say, lean into the Trojan family. We have such a special community at USC. I'm sure everyone on this call is like me. If anyone from USC reaches out to me, whether it's Annenberg or any other part of the university, I will always respond. Sometimes not right away. I got a little backed up on my LinkedIn DMs the other day. And as I was kind of going back through, I realized, oh, I missed this DM from Randa Hinton, who had reached out to me in March and said, hey, I'd love to connect. She was going to be graduating in May and kind of wanted to just strategize and talk about career search and ideas and all those kinds of things. And we had the most delightful call about a week ago. And she was telling me about a piece that she was writing for LinkedIn. She was searching, job searching, and finding it to be challenging, not surprisingly, in this environment. And I love what she did. She wrote an article for LinkedIn about how the LinkedIn community can bring hope during a job search. So even though she's out there looking and she's asking for people for help, she is also contributing to the community and sharing from her expertise and her knowledge and lifting people up and encouraging them on their own job searches. So what I would say here is try to be helpful to people in any way that you can. You know, chat with people, whether it's back and forth on email or text or DM, jump on a quick phone call or a Zoom meeting. And sometimes, you know, we feel like, you know, we don't want to respond because maybe we don't know about any job openings, or maybe we feel like we don't have people we can connect somebody to right away. But sometimes simply sharing ideas and encouragement and just being a source of, I don't know, stability or empathy or community can be really helpful to people. One other thing that I've noticed recently, and I hadn't really been paying attention to this, but in the space of a week, I had a couple people reach out to me and they said, Caroline, thank you for commenting on my LinkedIn comment. They said, you know, because of the number of followers and connections I have, they said they were pretty sure that because I had commented, it had caused the algorithm to show their post to more people. And that was really heartwarming for me because I like to leave people comments and interact with people and have a conversation and a dialogue. And I never really thought of it in terms of, this is a way I can help people. by commenting on their content, by sharing it in my networks, by tagging people and connecting people. So there's lots and lots of ways that we can help people at this time. One of the things I often advise, and I've kind of changed my thinking on this just in the last couple of weeks, is I used to be very much of a, connect with people, tell them why you want to connect, always send a personalized invitation, but don't ask for anything right away. Let the relationship build naturally. And I've really rethought that just in the last couple of weeks because of the intensity of the situation that we're in. So if there's something that you need, if you are looking for a job, if you notice someone in a network who you'd love to be introduced to, be really specific about what you're asking for and how the other person can help you. Of course, always doing anything you can to make the ask really easy for the other person to respond to. But don't hold back. Help people and ask for help if you need it. I'm just checking for questions here.
Caroline?
Yeah.
I want to give you a little breather to, take a sip of water or anything.
Okay.
So thank you all for chiming in the chat and asking your questions. I think this is all very valuable information, and thank you for sharing this. So Caroline, would you be open to take one live question at the moment, just to kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to raise their hand under the participants box. So if you go to your participant, if I see any little raised hands, I'll go ahead and call on you. Anyone? Okay. All right, that is not quite working as I thought, but it's okay. Oh, we got one. So let's see. Catherine?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Perfect.
Ask your question.
Hi, Caroline. I had a quick question, and I was just wondering with LinkedIn, when you get LinkedIn Premium, is that like a subtle way to signal maybe to different colleagues that you're looking for a different job? I just want to make sure to be careful with that.
Oh, okay. That's a really good question. And you know what? You never know. It just depends on the person who's looking at it. I know when I see someone who has LinkedIn Premium, my assumption is, that's someone who takes their network really seriously and wants to use those advanced features that Premium makes available. I think it's really good though to, as you've raised, always be thinking about what could a certain action potentially signal to other people that maybe you hadn't intended. Along those lines, one thing I didn't mention that I should have is there's a feature on LinkedIn where you can turn on, it's kind of up at the top of the profile, you can turn on the ability to indicate that you're open to hearing from recruiters. What LinkedIn says is they try to prevent your organization from knowing about that. I don't think that they can 100% say that it won't happen. But it does seem to be a subtle way to kind of raise your hand there in the LinkedIn community if you want to, in a, nothing's 100% confidential, but in a largely confidential way.
Caroline, I'd like to add to that. We actually held a Rock Your LinkedIn workshop last week for our students, and they were led by two LinkedIn LinkedIn employees, but they also are alums of the school. We're gonna figure out on how we can make that maybe available to people so that they can hear that information, because that particular question was asked and answered.
Yeah. That came through on my Twitter feed, and it was sort of like, I don't know, an hour or two after it had happened, and I thought, wow, that was like a fabulous session. I'm sure it was really valuable advice. Okay, Catherine, did that answer your question?
That was perfect. And just to tag on to that, like showing your recruiter the job titles you're looking for, like I've actually seen it where I've gone on someone's profile. I'm not a recruiter in HR, but like for whatever reason, it was public on their profile. So Not sure if that is
What?
just a glitch. Yeah, when I saw that, I was really surprised, but I guess it's just something to be conscious of. It could potentially, I don't think it would happen, but I mean, that's just what I saw.
Interesting. And I guess that really brings forth a universal mantra, which is nothing is 100% private online. So if you don't want it ever to be seen or shared with everyone, it's probably not a good idea to put it on social media anywhere. Thank you, Catherine. Let's see, someone asked about what are your thoughts on branding for multi-hyphenate roles? For example, I do photography, videography, editing, and producing. Wait, let's see. Sorry, I gotta bring the, and would also be interested in managing. So, okay. I think that's a really interesting question because so many of us have so many interests, right? And it's hard to just put us in, one nice, neat box and say we do this. LinkedIn certainly gives you the range to kind of share about your multi-hyphenate interests, particularly in how you pull it all together in your summary and kind of how you weave all the threads together and explain, what is it about all of those multiple areas that interest you and tap into your skills, and how do they all fit together? If you are applying for a specific role, though, like you said, you're interested in managing social media and that's where you're putting the bulk of your emphasis on, my advice would be make sure that your profile very strongly supports those particular roles that you're applying for in terms of how you think about your job descriptions and how you share projects and how you share work that you've done. Think about if a recruiter for a specific role that you've applied for visited your profile, what is it you want them to see? And you want it to articulate a really clear story around why you would be the perfect candidate for that role. And along those lines, you can be changing your profile all the time, every day. If you have an interview coming up, you might tweak a number of things. You might think about what's the content you've been sharing or commenting on. What are the very up to the minute things and actions that you want that recruiter or hiring manager to see. Okay. Ooh, wow, someone is in the final stages of writing a novel after a long has a long and storied career in PR. And I need to pivot my social media to be shared more as an author. Any recommendations? Wow, that could be a whole webinar in and of itself. One name I would throw out is check out a guy named Tim Grahl, Grahl. He does a lot of really interesting book marketing strategies on his website. He's like codified it all into a process, and you can take those lists of 100 actions you need to market a book and really boil it down to sort of 4 major ones. What you might want to do is have make sure your LinkedIn profile is reflecting your writing and your authorship, and also depending on what kind of a book it is, thinking about where is your audience likely to be. If it's a business book, they're probably going to be on LinkedIn. Can you reach your audience through Instagram? Do you need a Facebook author page? Your Amazon author page? Kind of thinking about where are all the places your audience is going to be, and then how do you want to show up in those places? That's a really short answer to what could be a really long and involved question. I wish you all the best on your novel. What a great time to be writing and publishing. Oh, someone asked about, would you suggest a professional photo for our LinkedIn profile? Is there a particular look we should lean toward? If you can get a professional photo, absolutely. It's well worth the investment. I did my photos a couple of years ago. I did 3 or 4 different wardrobe changes. So when I did that brand switch I was talking about, when I left the corporate world and started my own business, the profile picture that I changed out was actually from the same photo shoot, just a different view, wearing a different color because I had a whole different color palette. So it's just so worth the investment. And then what you can do is use that photo everywhere, because your profile photo is really like your logo or your brand as it would be for a product or a service. So you want the same picture on every social media profile. So when people look at your profile, they have instant recognition and they don't have to wonder, oh, you know, is this Leticia or is this someone else? If you have the same picture, there's that instant recognition. And then you can use it everywhere. You can use it in conference apps. You can use it in your social, you can use it in your email signature. You just want to use it everywhere consistently. So yes, if you can get a professional photo, definitely try to do that. If not, you know, the photos on our mobile device, the cameras on our mobile devices are so much better than they used to be. So take some pictures, edit away. What you want is to be looking directly at the camera, and you want kind of a close crop around your face. You want it looking professional. Don't take a picture and crop someone out, or don't do a full body shot. And also look at the profile pictures that catch your eye on LinkedIn and see what it is that you like about those. LinkedIn also has features now where you can add a filter and do some different things with your photo. And as long as we're talking about profile photos, the other really important thing is choose a background photo. If you don't choose a background photo, you get that default blue with the little dots, and you can really distinguish your profile if you choose a background photo that really tells your story and is eye-catching and attention-grabbing. It could be around you in a leadership role. Maybe you're speaking to a group of people. It could be something geographical about, you know, where, if you're in Los Angeles or wherever you are. But again, look at other people's background pictures, see what is attractive to you, and then come up with your own. I got a cold email, a LinkedIn invite from someone, and this has never happened to me before. Just by looking at his background photo, he had this super memorable quote that just, I don't know, spoke to me. And I just thought, wow, that was really powerful. And I accepted the connection. I don't think without that background photo I would have. So you never know. Okay. How effective is it to provide only a very high level summary and leave a personal website for more details? I think it's a matter of personal preference. My suggestion on LinkedIn is always fill it out until you get to that all-star, you get the little all-star thing. And then above and beyond that, if you want to send people to your website, you can certainly go ahead and do that. Okay. Sorry, I'm just reading. Okay, here's, as a young professional grad student, I already have an extensive online presence. What can I do to start building a reputation? How do I overcome the nervousness of sharing content on LinkedIn? Because I'm sharing content with so many experts in the field. Thanks in advance. You know, that's an issue I think sometimes people face all throughout their careers. I hear it a lot from clients where people say, I don't know what's interesting about me. I don't know what is unique. I don't know what I could possibly share that somebody else hasn't already said. And I would encourage everyone, and particularly people new in their careers, to really reflect on what are things that you have done or you do that seem simple to you, but could be of value to somebody else. So if you're in grad school, you've probably done some really incredible projects. You've done some amazing research. You've come up, oh, we're having a family moment. My dog is, sorry. My dog wants to get in on the action here, sorry. So you could certainly share, you know, your thought process around putting a project together. What gave you the idea? What's the research that you did? What are the conclusions that you drew? What are the implications for people who might work in that field? I'll give you a personal example too. As the coronavirus has been kind of sweeping through our world, I found myself a little bit shell shocked, and I'd be looking at my LinkedIn feed and my other social feeds, and it was almost like a state of paralysis. And, you know, all the articles about work from home and homeschooling your kids and, you know, all these things. And I thought, I don't know, I don't want to just jump into the fray and add more things and kind of like not me too in that sense, but I didn't want to do another work from home article, or, what are the tips and the tricks. And so I just started reflecting on what had my experience been like online, and how could I help people. And it actually turned into two articles. One was, how to network while you're staying at home and some advice for doing that. And then the other one was how to show up on social media during the coronavirus crisis, because I think that there are some very specific things, just a couple things to keep in mind. One is, if you're not acknowledging the crisis in some brief way, I think your content can be tuned out because people just don't resonate with it. At the same time, there's a little bit of fatigue about all coronavirus all the time. So I think there's an art to acknowledging the current state of the world and then pivoting into what you want to talk about. The other thing is having a sort of an extreme sense of, what do you know, what have you done that can be helpful to others that is unique to you? And that involves some soul searching really for all of us. Any advice for someone living in one market, say LA, that wants to make connections and build leads, relationships, awareness in another market, say for example, Dallas? That's the beauty of social media and LinkedIn, because you can really connect with anyone. I would say, first of all, start with a list of, what are the companies that you're interested in that market, and then start doing searches on LinkedIn for people at those companies, in the functions that you're interested in, at the levels that potentially would be a hiring manager level, and then also people who might be sort of peer or colleague levels. Look for mutual connections. If you have people in your network who know some people in the other city who you want to get to know, they may be willing to do introductions, so it's more of a warm lead. If you are, you may want to be overt on your profile if you can, that you are interested in and you're seeking opportunities in a particular market. Because some recruiters, if they see, greater Los Angeles and they're looking for someone in Dallas, that you might not rise to the level of attention for a particular search that they're doing. That's a beautiful way to use LinkedIn. Okay. I'm sorry, I know I'm missing some of the questions and we're coming up on the top of the hour here, so we'll try to do just a couple of more. Do you have suggestions on how to stay relevant and not become invisible due to the numerous hats that mothers working from home with kids now have? Wow, that is a really challenging one. It's one that I've actually thought a lot about, because my kids are kind of the young adult years, and I'm just realizing and wondering, how are working parents really, keeping up their jobs remotely, homeschooling their kids, and making sure that they're doing the lessons and that they're online and doing their homework, and maintaining a household and just really a life. My advice would be, think about what you've learned from that experience. I'm seeing a lot of pieces where, people are just admitting the reality of it, that, it's really not possible. Perfection is not possible. People have come up with different, strategies. They've formed groups on LinkedIn to kind of talk about it. I've also seen articles too that are advocating for, what needs to change in society, what is really needed to support parents who are at home working. So it could take, any number of forms. Maybe you've learned something from homeschooling and the challenges there that applies to work in a professional sense. It could be any number of things. I would say also, though, if you've got that much on your plate, don't necessarily feel like you have to layer on, posting to social media every day in addition to all the things that you have on your plate. This is a very unusual time. We need to be kind to ourselves and others as we work through this.
Caroline,
Yeah,
I know
think
we're about 7 minutes till the top of the hour. I don't know if there's any other slides that you wanted to share.
Oh, just a couple really quick things. If anyone wants to know more, I have a lot of resources on my website. It's carolineleach.com. I have about 200 blog posts. I will say right up front, I'm kind of in the middle of a redesign, so it's not as beautiful as I would like it to be, but the information is there. And if you want to sign up on my website, you can get a free social media workbook. It's 50 ideas, actions, and strategies to build and boost your career on social media. One of the sections is with some specific prompts on how to build a personal brand. And there is a challenge with a broken link, so have no fear. If you enter your email address and for whatever reason you do not get your workbook right away, rest assured you will have it from me within about an hour or two from signing up. And the other piece is the workbook comes from my book, What Successful People Do on Social Media, a short guide to boosting your career. It is available on Amazon, and I have discounted the price 50% this week. So if you want to buy it through Friday, the Kindle version is not $7.99, it is $3.99. And very lastly, I would say I would love to connect with you. I would love to keep in touch. I'm here as a resource and a fellow Trojan, and on LinkedIn, I'm a big proponent of, I love personalized invites. I always advise people, don't click the button that just says connect, tell me who you are and why you want to connect. And I look forward to getting to know you.
Perfect. All right, thank you so much, Caroline. So I have a couple questions, and maybe this will help close this out. One question is, my first question is if there's one thing that our audience can take away in regards from pivoting, from if they're pivoting in their career, what is like that one thing that comes to mind, like top of mind?
Pick a topic and talk about it consistently.
And then my second question is for anyone on the call who is about to graduate and enter into a very turbulent workforce. What is your kind of some advice that you can impart with our graduating class?
You know what? Never give up. Tell yourself that you are going to find something great for you to do, whether it's for the next year or the next 10 years, and really work your network in any way that you can. Network with your parents' friends, network with each other, network with your professors. I have a mantra in life that is, it's called don't apply for stuff, because when you apply for, and I'm not suggesting that you don't apply for jobs, but when you apply for jobs, you're competing against a lot of people who've sent in resumes and applications in an online format. And when you can meet people through your network and get to know people through your network, and they know you or they know about you and what you're capable of, you have a lot better chance of landing an interview and getting an interview and actually having a conversation with a live human who's in a position to get to know you and hire you is so much more powerful than anything else you can do. So use the network, lean into the Trojan network, help each other, never give up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Caroline. It's been a pleasure to have you here and lead this conversation with us. So this discussion is being recorded, so we'll distribute this afterwards to all of our attendees. If you guys want to just throw a thank you in the chat box to Caroline for all her wonderful wisdom, we appreciate that. And let's see, we're just 2 minutes short of 6 o'clock. So thank you. I guess thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks everyone. Have a great evening and fight on.